you've got a bunch of famous posters. Maybe the most famous says, "Don't work for our souls, don't work with our souls." Now, that's the Australian pronunciation. It's not assholes, right? That's American.
But you still spell it double S, don't you? The English
Well, no, we actually spell it
RSE.
ARSE. You might have to do
So,
an Aussie version.
or English for that matter.
That could be funny. That could be funny, actually.
Americans won't get it.
Hello and welcome to Remorandum, a podcast about everything interesting. I'm Remo Giuffre. Today I'll be joined by a very special guest, Erik Spiekermann. Erik, a longtime friend of Remo, is one of the most influential figures in modern typography and design. Renowned for his clarity-driven philosophy and wry sense of humor. You'll get to see that firsthand in a minute. He has spent more than 5 decades shaping how the world reads and interacts with type. In 1979, he co-founded Meta Design, which grew to become one of the world's leading design firms. His work spans corporate identity systems, groundbreaking typefaces, and digital font distribution. In recent years, Erik has returned to his roots with Hacking Gutenberg, an experimental project that merges centuries-old letterpress with digital tools like laser cutters and 3D printing. Erik is as much a communicator as he is a designer. His book, Stop Stealing Sheep and Find Out How Type Works, 1993, is now in its 4th edition, and it remains a go-to guide for typographic literacy. Welcome, Erik. You're in Berlin and I'm in Sydney.
That's right. Good evening or good morning in your case.
It's too early for me and it's too late for you, so this is bound to be a lousy interview.
Let's get it over, in other words.
Look, here's my empty cup of tea and
traditional British blue striped tea mug.
Yes, TG Green. I've been dying to talk to you for so long. We've basically had an email relationship for a long time, but we haven't spent a lot of time face to face. Although I was trying to remember if we met at the 1993 TED conference or the 1994 TED conference. Did you go to Kobe or was your first one Monterey?
Which is 92, wasn't it, or 93?
93, right. So I met you in Kobe. That was Ricky Werman's experiment. I don't remember too much about it. I remember there were yakutars, there were boxes of sake, there was lots of sloppy drunk guys from General Motors and Sony.
Well, the most important thing is that we met. And, we've obviously, as you said, we've sustained a very remote but mentally intense friendship.
Then some years later, when I worked at Frog Design, you were sort of revered somewhat there by Hartmut Esslinger and Patricia Roller and the other people. So you might have, did you visit the Sunnyvale office of Frog ever? Or?
Oh yeah, then I did a few times. My wife, Susanna, my American wife, who we've been married for 30 years, she worked at Frog at my connection. Hartmut and I go back to the late 80s, even before he worked for Apple, and I started work. And in fact, I went to his 85th birthday last year, or was it 2 years ago? He's a little older than me still, and we hang out together a lot. In fact, there's a new movie, a series of 3 movies about the Apple story in German so far that just broke. It's only in German for now, and we're both in there because we're both early Apple perpetrators and users.
Of course.
Whatever.
Well, I knew.
We're good old buddies.
What was your early work with Apple? What did you do with them?
I did some marketing work for them in Germany, but most of my work was actually with Adobe. But I was the first private person in Germany to buy a Macintosh, apparently, at the beginning of '85.
Right,
So the dealer told me at the time. Other people I saw my first one at Linotype in late '84, and I knew because as you remember, for us to have type was difficult. It was either sort of rubbed on letter set, or you had to go and pay film setting $300 an hour to get 5 letters, and then we had to make up stuff and sketch it. And I knew, oh my God, I could print real type, which was amazing. And I knew that, but everybody else. And I took one on this little handle. You remember the old Mac you carried across on the train from Bonn, the Ministry of Postal Communications. I took it from Linotype to them on the train, and I was commissioned with a typeface to do for them for the telephone books and forms. And I got there. This is middle July '85, and their what they call the artistic council, people who would pick things like typefaces, where they look like cartoons. They all were berets. They all look like artists in the cartoons. They were schlepping their little folders under there. It was very funny. All old men, and I was obviously a younger man then. And I had this little disc in my shirt pocket. Some of you viewers may remember the little discs. And I said, guy, and I put this Mac on the table. And I said, "What's this?" I said, "It's a computer." They said, "Nah, computers take a whole room and they need air conditioning." I said, "No, you wait." And then I took this out, put it in there, and the screen went on, and the little logo came up. And I showed some type, and I said, "That type is not in there. You're cheating." I said, "No, the typeface is on this disc." I said, "Nah, no way." So I designed the typeface, which later became Meta, the one you're using, have been using ever since. And they just laughed. They literally laughed. And I thought, this guy is totally fucking crazy. I mean, you can't put a typeface on a disc. It needs lorries full of metal, and we have to transport it over 500 kilometers up and down Germany. It'll never work. So they never commissioned the typeface. Or they commissioned it, paid for it, but they didn't use it. So I used it later.
I know. Just to think about the pain that was involved in laying out a catalog in those days. And then looking at your keynote presentation you sent me that had that frame by frame, what's involved in old-fashioned letter type to create every line of type manually like that, letter by letter, uppercase, lowercase. Awesome.
And you've got to make those letters in the first place. Somebody had to carve every letter of every size on the top of a little piece of steel. And then it was just, I don't know how they did this. It is absolutely mind-boggling what they did.
And I showed that presentation to my wife too, who's become obsessive about knitting. She's very into knitting at the moment. So you make the argument about the use of hands and how, it's very important to keep using your fingers, and what are the fingers are the windows to the brain, or there was some quote
in there.
The
hand is the window to the mind.
The hand, right? Yeah. See how I butchered that.
The hand is Immanuel Kant wrote this 250 years ago. The hand is the window onto the mind.
Yeah.
Which is true. I mean, that's how we grasp things, right? That's how children learn. They take hold of stuff. We don't do this anymore. It's very scary. They found in schools that kids can't write anymore because they can't handwrite, and they lose that connection between their brain and the hand. There is a connection. If we lose that, it's okay for us old guys. But there is something about this spatialness.
So are you still doing client consulting in parallel to your Hacking Gutenberg work? We'll get to that in a minute.
I should be, because it pays. What I do is I still had my ex-company, which is now called Spiekermann, because we merged with it. I got out of meta design on bad terms 25 years ago. Although they want to bring me back now that it's almost 50 years. It'll be 50-year anniversary in 3 years' time. Eden Spiekermann does a lot of branding, and I did German Railways and Bosch and all those big brands for those guys. So I help. They wheel me in, as it were. They wheel you in.
So they retained your name in the brand of the
So
firm.
In other words, as long as my name's on the door, I have some responsibility. So I can't ignore if they do something wrong. And I have a friend. I've had many assistants help me with type, because you mentioned that somewhere in your writing. The physical work of type design is very mechanical. There's a shitload of data to do. You move, 400 characters for one typeface, which is really, really boring. The design part is 5%. And then it's like writing the script for a movie. It's important that the script is good, but you can make a shit movie out of it, or a good movie. And the people that help me are very good at making the technology. So I tend to advise clients when they want their own typeface, which a lot of people do these days, partly because it's cheaper than paying license to Monotype or somebody. I will sketch it out. I will find something that is similar, and sort of say, oh, this is what you want, or this is what you want, or you want this, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So to narrow it down, to do a framework, and do some sketches, and bring in some other examples, and then pass it on to somebody who makes a total typeface out of it, which is a lot of work.
That's interesting. We've got one of my projects for next year is a day to a page calendar, actually this size for economic reasons. Sort of a tribute to those Chinese calendars on very, very lightweight paper, 60
I
GSM
love that. I love the GSM
paper.
stuff. Yeah.
You just rip it off.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I haven't found a typeface where I like all of the numbers from, and the designer that I've been working with for 35 years, when I did my clock, the Remo clock, she actually hand drew every number to please me. So she's got those sitting on a hard disk in storage somewhere. So we're going to resuscitate that. So it'll be a hacked version of just the number 2 that I like, just the number 3 that I like. God knows where they come from.
Well, I like designing the numbers is my favorite piece of I don't know why, because the numbers are Indian or Arabic, not Roman. I love doing them. So I'm going to send you a bunch of numbers. I also designed some house numbers for design with the region America, like 10, 12 years ago. So I have some that only have numbers, no letters for it. I've stenciled.
Yeah.
I'll send you a bunch of numbers. And if you don't like
awesome.
some of them, you are totally...
This is what I like, the kind of the very chunky sans serif.
Yeah, that could be almost accidentskotastic. That it needs that 2 needs a little swing in the middle. It's a little boring in the middle. That needs a tiny little kick.
Anyway, like your later stage career, I call myself a solopreneur at the moment because I basically do absolutely everything. And kind of I like it that way, but it is very hand to mouth often. But give me the backstory of where you are now, Hacken Gutenberg. So having left this illustrious career, I didn't realize about the bad terms thing. I'd forgotten about that. But then Eden Spiekermann was your revenge. Then you slowly exited that. Explain to our listeners what Hacken Gutenberg actually is, physically and philosophically.
Philosophically, it comes. I was probably a little too early. I think I'm entering the right frame now, because we're realizing that we're losing a lot of the analog. I mean, there's nothing more analog than setting or moving, taking type in your hands, whether it's wood type or metal type. It's totally unpractical from a commercial point of view, obviously. It's become an art form or a pastime or a hobby in my case. But it's incredibly educational when we have, because what you do with type, physical type, you set it in on a background, but you have to fill the space in between. You can't just put type and have a return key. If you have anybody's ever seen a page of type, there's the letters and then there's the spacing, the leading, the stuff in between, and you physically touch it. And people who come to us for a workshop, they're always digital, youngish people, and they don't want to go home at night because it's like a bit of like playing with Lego blocks. You sort of work out the system after a while and you're really proud of it and you don't want to stop because you suddenly realize, oh my God, this is leading and this is tracking and this is minus, and there's no kerning because kerning involves a saw or a soldering iron or whatever. It's too complicated. So fuck kerning. It's overrated. Make it look good. And also, you don't have all the sizes. You may only have one type in one size. So you adjust the headline or whatever. So suddenly working with a scarcity and not having all the fonts is relief. I mean, you sit there and I've got 15,000 fonts on my computer. And I force myself to use some of them every now and again because, I have them all and I design half of them. But when you sit there and you want to put this word on this poster and you pick this type and it doesn't fit and it's only in one size, then you start messing around and they have great fun. It's like bringing you back to being a child. The tactile, the analog is the opposite of swiping things on a screen. It's a great fun that we are missing, and we get aware of the fact that a page is actually a space that is filled with words. It's not just a page. It doesn't end. The ending is arbitrary, the framing. And that's just the fun part. So that's my mission, to bring people back. The second mission is to keep some of the technology. There's no letters being cast, no type being cast in Germany. There's someone in Poland. There's people in the States that are still casting type, which is a dumb and dangerous hobby. I mean, lead is you boil lead at 380 degrees Celsius. It's not funny. It's dangerous. It's poisonous, and all the rest of it. But it's got 500 years of history, so it'd be a shame to lose that old craft. It's simply that it's a 500-year-old craft. It's brought our civilization. I mean, if Gutenberg hadn't existed, Martin Luther wouldn't have. I mean, he could have written his 95 Theses, nailed them on the church door, and 2 days later, nobody would have cared. But somebody printed them and sent them to the Pope.
I did some research on the Gutenberg Bible, and I was surprised to see how euphoric people were about the blackness of
Oh my
the
God, it was beautiful. Yeah, that was very beautiful.
and it wasn't ink, was it? It was
Oh, yeah. No, it was ink.
but it was
Well, most of it
something.
was printed on parchment, and
Yeah.
they're printed very slowly on this screw press, which took forever and ever. So there's
Mm,
an amazing coverage that we couldn't do anymore. If you're printing quickly, then the page would fall to the next page and it'd be smushed,
mm,
and wouldn't be saved. But they printed one page and then put it somewhere, save, and then printed the next page 10 minutes later. So they're all dried
mm.
separately over days. You can't get that blackness in industrial environment. There's no way.
Yeah,
But
right.
the main thing is that it multiplied thoughts. The spreading of
Yeah.
thoughts was dangerous. That's why printers had a royal decree normally. They had to get a stamp by the Kaiser or by the king or whatever, because
Mm.
printing was dangerous, as you still hear in China. You can't
Yes.
print everything because thoughts could be dangerous, and if thoughts are multiplied and people can
Mm.
read them, oh my God, the Catholic Church didn't like the fact that Luther wrote the Bible in German because the peasants could read it.
So you've got a little workshop there where you tinker away. You've got some volunteers, or you've got employees, or just volunteers?
No, I don't have any employees anymore. Now it's just people who come in either as interns, or I pay them by the hour, or they just come by. It's a
Mm.
total hobby. It's totally stupid. It's, as my wife says, other people have a way of getting rich quickly. I have a way of getting poor slowly. Well,
Oh
some
yeah,
people do
yeah.
it.
No, I've got a friend, Stephen Abbott, who we both have a remarkable skill of turning gold coins into copper. So
Well, anyway, so that's the one part you're asking about. So that's
yeah,
my sort of mission, but that's shared by a few people all over the world who maintain the old machinery, the old process, the old craft. So there's some younger people. But the one thing I'm doing, and why it's called Hacking Gutenberg, and by the way, I'm getting the Gutenberg Prize for this year from the Gutenberg Society, which is the big deal. Umberto
awesome.
Eco. They give it to scientists and philosophers and stuff. I'm one of the first people who got it for practical work, not
Yeah,
for
good.
talking about it, but for
Well, you
doing it.
deserve it.
Anyway, so what we do is that's why we call it hacking. We've built ourselves a laser that writes data onto a plate made of nylon. It's called polymer. It's basically what you do in nylon. It's a plastic that gets hardened by where the laser hits it, and then those are the letters, and the stuff between the letters gets washed away. So you have a relief plate like you do have proper metal
Right.
type.
Okay. Oh,
And
that's
we
good.
build this laser ourselves because there are those lasers, but they usually only work from a negative.
Right.
You have to make a negative and then copy it. We go direct to plate from my computer, and it's bigger than most plates you can get. It's 50 by 70 centimeters. You're metric in Australia, aren't you?
Mm,
50 by
mm.
7, which is whatever, 25 by 30 inches. So these plates, so it's, it takes 8 pages of a book, a normal size book, like your books. And we have a magnetic base in the bottom of a Heidelberg press, a cylinder press from 1954. That magnetic bottom goes in there, the plate snaps on top of it, and we print as if it were real type. So you get the impression, you get the slight indentation, the little fuzziness, which makes it look blacker and warmer and softer than offset. Offset is always water, and it's always gray because it's water, basically water and
Right,
grease.
right.
So there's no offset printing without water. So we get the deep black. Then it costs a fortune. You couldn't run 100,000 books. You could, but you couldn't pay for it. And we make this edition. We have 10 books out. It's called TOC, the other collection.
Oh yeah, I saw it. And yeah.
I should send you some. I will send you some. So
Well,
they're printed letterpress, but they're contemporary books. Most letterpress people only go up to Shakespeare, and they write the same one. They print the same
Yeah.
old stuff that's been out there 1,000 times. So we print modern literature, interesting literature in English so far, as letterpress.
I think I saw
editions.
a spread in one of your presentations that was printing in a blue ink. Was that
Yeah, we print
one of the
whatever
books?
ink, yeah. The last ink
Yeah.
the last one was green ink, blue ink, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll send you a
Beautiful.
bunch. They're expensive
Great
to send, but no
Great
expenses
work.
there. So
Yeah, well,
it's a market that doesn't exist. We're not selling 1 million of them. They cost about $130, which is too cheap for the collectors and too expensive for the readers. So we're
right.
still looking for that market, but we're doing it, and that's the main. So
Yeah.
we're keeping a press from 1954, printing in today's environment, in a commercial setting.
I know you've recently moved from a larger space, and so you probably would have had to sacrifice not just type, but maybe some equipment. And
Oh,
was that
lots. Yeah.
heart-wrenching? What did you sell them
Well, I
on a
sold a couple
marketplace?
of presses. I sold a couple of presses, but I still got 6 or 7 in storage.
Right.
I will be the man with the most proofing presses when I die. That was my aim always.
Do you have children?
One children. Yeah.
Yeah, because that Swedish death cleaning
No,
thing is something
my son's a musician. He appreciates all this, but he doesn't want to know about it. No,
he doesn't
it's
want to.
my wife has the the waiver. She can chuck it all. I don't fucking care. But I never paid much money for them because they, people were chuck when I
Yeah.
started collecting presses in the '60s. They were throwing them out the window, literally.
You've got a bunch of famous posters. Maybe the most famous says, "Don't work for assholes, don't work with assholes." Now that's the Australian pronunciation. It's not assholes, right? That's
No,
American.
no. Well, you still spell it double S, don't you? The
Well,
English R,
no, we actually spell it
RSE.
ARSE. You might have to do
So,
an Aussie version.
or English for that matter.
That could be funny. That could be funny, actually. It's like
Americans won't get it.
the only the only existing Aussie example of the Erik Spiekermann. So that sounds suspiciously like it was born of some actual bad experience. I
Oh,
mean,
totally. I'm sure you
yeah,
know it. I mean, if you work as a designer, when you're starting off, and I have no training as a designer, so I just started. I went to university, did art history, which didn't do me a lot of good, and I did all sorts of stuff. And I've always worked in print shops since I was 12. It was always this
right.
thing I did. So I could do it before I did a little apprenticeship, but basically I'm totally self-taught as a designer also, which I couldn't admit for a long time until I'd been teaching it for so long that they didn't ask me. And when I got my first professorship, they didn't dare
Yeah,
ask me if I went to university because I was already an accomplished designer. So, so I've learned over time, as you have. You start off on your own, and you get projects, business cards or little flyers. I mean, really Ponzi stuff for
mm,
no money whatsoever. I don't know how we survived. And the only money we ever started making when I started Fun Shop with my then wife, where suddenly, people would buy stuff that didn't take as
mm,
much to produce because we just bought and sold. But the design work slowly, and I made a lot of compromise. People would walk in and spend hours telling me what to do, and then they didn't like it, or the usual stuff. Oh, can I have it blue? And that sort of thing. You've heard it all before. And it
make
took
the
me
logo
probably
bigger.
20
Yeah,
years. I'm sure I was in my 40s before I realized that I knew when I walked into a client whether it was going to work or not. And I
mm,
stopped denying it. I said, well, I know this isn't maybe not an asshole, but somehow we don't have the chemistry. I wouldn't go and have a beer with him at night unless I was
mm,
forced
mm,
to.
mm.
But I've got employees and they are wives and dogs and they need to pay the rent and la-di. But you know what? You always lose money on those clients. And I think by the time I think I realized that maybe I was already in my late mid-40s when I made that resolve, and I said, okay, if I walk in somewhere or somebody calls and I have this feeling that it's not going to
Mm,
work, I'm not going to do it. People said, oh, that's arrogant. How can you possibly? I said, no, I
mm,
know it. And we know, what is it? They say it's 8 seconds when you look at somebody, whether you get on with each other or not. And everything else
mm.
is post-rationalization. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
we must have liked each other after 8 seconds. Otherwise, you wouldn't be talking to each other 30 years later, 40 years later, whatever it is. We have also the reason why that doesn't, but we're in a lucky position as freelance designers, even if you're employees, that you can pick and choose. And all the projects I've done that I'm proud of, that I can still
Mm.
show, I'm all still friends with my clients at the time. Some have died on me, some were younger than me. They're all still buddies because
Yeah,
we work
that's great.
together to do something. They were never the CEOs, they're the design managers or whatever. And we did something against everybody else, basically. They brought me in and said, who's this funny guy? And
Mm,
then they win the first prize. The only reason, by the way, to win prizes, because my clients can go on, look here, we got this,
mm.
whatever, TDC medal. I don't care. But inside them, oh my God, our designers won a prize. So we had a Dutch friend and said, we have to happify our clients. I don't think that word existed. We
Mm.
make our clients happy, and our clients are the managers that whom we work. And if they're happy, they spread that happiness inside their company, and then they become
Mm.
heroes, and then they're recommended to other people. All
Yeah,
the jobs have come
it's
from somebody who I
but
worked with for even ex-students suddenly become clients.
Yeah.
So the other lesson is treat everybody as if you want to meet them again in 20 years' time. You know, ignore assholes and make friends with
golden
people
rule.
that you want to make friends with.
The other poster that I come across of yours quite often is the better done than perfect, with misspelling on the perfect. But that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, what's the percentage? Like, for my own work, I discovered that 80% was my percentage. You know, that I would drive myself crazy if everything had to be 100% exactly how I wanted it to be. And the only way, when I was running the TEDx franchise down here for 15 years, I was actually seriously worried about my mental health after the first year or two, because I was so involved with every detail and I was so obsessed and not being a good delegator. But then I read this, I met him at a TED conference, actually, the guy who wrote The Starfish and the Spider, the power of leaderless organizations, using examples like Alcoholics Anonymous, where there's this organization that no one actually runs. And so I decided that the only way that I was going to survive on my TEDx Sydney journey was if I radically delegated to people and was willing to be satisfied in the knowledge that 20% of the time it was going to be a disaster. You know, so.
No, I totally agree. I mean, there's one exception. When I set my own books, like these books I just described, I strive, because it's in my own time and I can do whatever I like, to do it 100%, to do the typography as well as it possibly can be. But that's my little craft thing. And still, I've never printed a book that has at least one mistake in it. Always. And the minute you open it, you know it. You see the one mistake that nobody else has seen. 6 people haven't seen it. So that's the one thing. But generally, I totally agree with you. The reason why I've been fairly successful with large studios and large clients is because I've always surrounded myself by people who are better than me at certain things. They were better coders or better type designers. I'm fairly good at everything, but I'm never 100%. 100% is a few things. But you have good people, and then you have this like you did in a conference. You can relax. They're gonna fucking sort it out. So that's one of my secrets: picking good people.
And the attitude of the people too. I always was attracted to people for whom good work was its own reward. You know, totally. They aren't driven by the money at all.
There's a famous book, one of my Bibles, by Richard Sennett, the American, called The Craftsman, which he writes 250 pages about what it takes to be a craftsman. He talks about instrument makers, jewelers, and what have you, printers also. And his quote basically is, a craftsman does, I'm saying his now, her work as well as he possibly can. So it's I am my own master. I'm my own measurement. If I say it's perfect, it's perfect. No, I don't care if nobody sees it. Of course, I see it, and that's important. I mean, a chef has the little 2 grains of whatever. I wouldn't taste it, but he knows it's in there. And I think that is the measurement. It's me. It's my measurement.
Exactly.
I can't charge for it. But to go back to that perfect poster, actually, that was a funny story, because if you have this is large poster type. It was 20 or 20 pica, 20 line. So it's kind of, that tall, 12 centimeters. You have like 5 A's or 3 A's, 5 E's, and so on, and only 1 X and only 1 Y and 1 Z. In Germany, we don't have enough Y's. And so when you write a longish line, you got to count your letters. So better done than perfect would have been 5 E's. As I came to set it, I got to the end. I went perfect, and I was like, shit, I've got an E missing. So I left it there, set up. Wait a minute. I left it set up, thinking, okay, what you can do is you can print it with a space and then put the extra E in a second run, or change the whole font or whatever. I left it till the next morning. My assistant walks in and says, that's brilliant. I said, what do you mean it's brilliant? It's a fucking E missing. He said, yes. And I hadn't seen that. I hadn't seen the brilliance.
It's so perfect.
But that's what happens
that I'm even using that word. Yeah.
But that's what happens when you have these materials. They have their own way of telling you a message. A letter's missing, or you do one upside down or whatever. The other example, we have this other poster called God is in the Details, which we spelled wrong, is Details. And I said this with my son, he was in Berlin. No, we set it in large, in Accidenzcolors bold, 24 it's very large. And we printed 10 or 15. on a big letterpress, and you don't look at it. You print it. We went for lunch, and we come back, and Dylan, my son, says to me, Erik, how do you spell details? I said, Detials. I said, well, look at it. Oh, fuck. Because I and L, when it's typed, it's also murky, black and brown stuff. It's not black or white when you see it in the form. And I had not seen it. So we changed it, printed it. Nobody wanted the good words. Everybody wanted the mistake.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that because I know the Van der Rohe. I know the Van der Rohe quote.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
But I made that mistake, but it's a real mistake. I would have been embarrassed to have. It's a bit of a cheap pun. Now I wish I could think of more of those.
Now I'm going to have to get that one from you as well for the trilogy. Yeah.
We've reprinted that perfect poster with the first E missing because we print 50 when they're sold out. We got to reprint. We're going to change it. So we've done the first E with also perfect and whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a happy moment when the material tells you this is what it is. It's a mistake. We're out of E's. Tough shit.
That's
brilliant.
That's a perfect way to end our conversation. But before I do that, I want people to know that there is an Erik Spiekermann spread in Memorandum 6, which is mailing out to subscribers in May. So you'll get to see Erik and read about him. There's a QR code. You can. There was quite an interesting mini doc from one of the German broadcasters that I linked to. But why don't you tell people how they can support Hacking Gutenberg and become a friend? Because you've got a little network of patrons, right?
Well, if you can remember Hacking Gutenberg, one word, and then .berlin or .com for that matter, you come to a page that's called Friends, or Freunde if you speak German. We have both. And there you can see how you can help us by contributing a little money per month or per year. You can give us $1 million, fine. There's no limit to the top. There's a limit to the bottom. No, there isn't. You can give us 95 fucking cents a month. I don't care. It's more than
my philosophy.
Well, the people who support us also get a discount on all the postcards and posters we sell. They get discounts on workshops. And when they come in, they get 2 espressos rather than just one and get some. I bake my own biscuits. So if you're a friend and supporter, you get free biscuits, free coffees, and discounts on stuff. How's that?
That's great. We're saying goodbye to our listeners. Thanks very much for staying up late and getting my blood moving so early in the morning. I'm out of tea, so I'm going to get another cup. And see you soon. Thanks, Erik.
See you later. Thanks very much.